Hello there, and welcome to Palliative Care and End of Life, created by these wonderful people you see here. It's a fickle thing, really, life. Often gone in a flash. How many more moons will you watch rise? Nobody really knows the answer. Possibly, our lives would become consumed by the knowledge of our deaths, if we did. Nurses are likely to find themselves caring for dying individuals in many situations, including acute care in a hospice program, in a nursing home, or even in a client's home. So understanding death as a normal part of life is a fundamental concept. So please, join us.
Hey. That's a bad bear. That's a bad bear. You get back in your cage, bad bear. I don't want to hear it. It's a bad bear. It's a bad bear.
Let's just begin with the story of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And thank you for joining.
Adam Smith is a 32-year-old Sasquatch hunter who is married to his high school sweetheart, Sophia, and has been his loyal partner since then. They had bought a house together and were planning on having their first child soon. Unfortunately, they are about to receive devastating news that will change their plans forever.
How they toss the dice, it had to be. The only one for me is you, and you for me, so happy together.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith? Hi, Doctor. Hello. My name is Dr. Walker. How are you both doing today? Waiting on the results, I imagine. So listen, this type of thing is always a little awkward. It's always a little uncomfortable. So to help me deliver the news to you, to make it as pleasant of an experience as possible for you, I brought in a silent interpreter to help me along. Okay, Monica?
Hi.
This is Monica. Mr. Smith. We got your results back, and I'm sorry to say you have a stage 4 malignant tumor in your brain.
How is this possible? I live a healthy lifestyle. I run 2 miles a day. I do burpees. I'm a vegetarian. There's no family history of this. I don't get it.
You must be wrong. It can't be my husband. You must have got the results mixed up. It's not possible.
Unfortunately, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I've never made a mistake. You see, I'm a doctor, and it's actually impossible for me to do so.
Let's just say it is true. What's the treatment?
Unfortunately, I mean, there's not really a treatment at this point. Your cancer was diagnosed at such a late stage. It's metastasized so severely that hope of achieving remission is, well, there is none.
So, how long do I have to live?
Some doctors are saying 3 months. Some doctors are saying 6 months. According to the latest betting pool, it looks like the big money is on 3 months. $500 to be exact. I'm so sorry, both of you.
After explaining their options, the doctor leaves the room. Despaired, the couple enters the denial phase, the first stage of grieving. Their grief progressed to anger, bargaining, and acceptance. So they started to discuss Adam's options of care. A nurse from a local community hospital comes in and explains to the Smiths that hospice is not a place, but a concept of care. She says that the hospice care goal, which is the final phase of palliative care, isn't curative in nature. Instead, it would be more about giving Mr. Smith comfort care. The nurse explained that they would provide him pain treatment and that in order to have control of the pain, an around-the-clock administration of medication plus a breakthrough PRN would be used. As Adam didn't want to be resuscitated, the medical order for DNR was placed in Adam's chart. He also chose not to have a feeding tube placed. The nurse explained that even though some of his organs and tissues wouldn't qualify for donation because of his cancer, he could still be a donor. The nurse asked about their religious views and preferences, and she found out that they wanted to reconnect with members of their church. Next, she asked Mr. Smith about unfinished business, and also she encouraged him to talk about past events. She calmly listened to her patient to make sure the teaching was effective and asked the patient and wife to teach back.
The goals of nursing care at the end of life include relieving pain and providing comfort. Regarding death as a normal process, neither rushing nor postponing death, enhancing dignity and quality of the remaining life, and offering support to patient family during illness and family bereavement. Most patients and families struggle with the terminal diagnosis and the realization that there is no cure, often progressing through this grief cycle. The grief experience for the family members often begin before the actual death event. The nurse should help them to adapt to the loss by supporting spiritual and psychological needs and teaching about what will be expected at this phase of life.
After 2 months, Adam's condition is deteriorating. Tomas is a new graduate nurse that started working for the local community hospice. He comes in to check in on Adam and finds that his blood pressure is high and he is having an irregular pattern of breathing.
His blood pressure is really high. Did you know that?
Well, no, I didn't. Is that bad?
Has he been eating?
Well, that's the other problem is he won't even open his mouth and I can't feed him anything.
Okay, we're going to have to start an NG too. We're going to have to force food down him because he needs to be strong to fight this cancer.
Did you see that? Did you see his breathing?
No, not really.
Well, of course you didn't, because he's not breathing.
He's coding. He's coding. We need to call 911.
I thought you were 911.
I don't know who 911 is.
The charge nurse hears the commotion from the hall and quickly enters the room.
No, you can stop. You can stop. He's fine. So, Mrs. Smith, I heard your husband has been less responsive lately, but I want to let you know that all the symptoms, all the signs that he's experiencing is normal, is expected for the end of the life. So at the beginning, we're going to see what Thomas just saw. High blood pressure, all his vital signs will be going up, will be high, and then they will drop at the end. Another point is that he might have some pain. Sometimes you can see he's grimacing, and we want to have him comfortable, the most comfortable we can. We're gonna give him meds, PRN, like it was explained at the beginning. We're gonna give him meds. I can see he has meds. We are going to change his position every 2 hours to provide him comfort so he can breathe better. But about that respiration, like hyperventilation and alternating with periods of apnea, we call chain stocks. That's expected. So he's not coding. His vital signs are what we are expecting for this. Another point at this time, his skin might get cold, clammy. That's another thing we can expect. So another point very important is that he's hearing. He will be listening. That's the last thing that is gonna go away, right? So I encourage you to talk to him because he can hear. He can hear everything you're talking, you're saying. And if you have any questions, you can always call to the hospice and we can send Thomas. Or myself, we can come to support you. Okay?
Once again, to make sure the learning was effective, the nurse asks Mrs. Smith to teach her back. Despite the new nurse's mistaken view of palliative care, the family member was able to teach back the correct instructions that were taught. She concluded explaining about brain death. She tells Mrs. Smith that it is an absence of reflexes and the brain is declared dead by 2 doctors. The nurse added to the explanation that to prevent an emotional burnout from her being at her husband's bedside for so many days, which could be troublesome for Sophia's own health, it would be better for her to take a day off and go out to relax a little bit. The community hospice would provide a 1-to-1 trained staff member to take care of her husband on that particular day. The emotional burden felt by Mrs. Smith was eased by the nurse's effective teaching and therapeutic communication. As a palliative care nurse, she is able to address specific symptoms and help Sophia to cope and feel much more comfortable at the end of her husband's life process.
Physical manifestations at the end of life are as follows. Hearing is the last sense to disappear. Touch and taste become decreased, while vision begins to blur. The heart has an increased rate in blood pressure, which later slows and weakens, and Cheyne-Stokes breathing often occurs. Bowel and bladder output may slow down and incontinence may occur. Loss of tone and ability to move, loss of gag reflex and problem swallowing. Cold, clammy skin, cyanosis of the nose, nail beds, and knees may also occur. Remember this, my nurses. You are not immune to the feeling of loss. It is common to feel powerless when dealing with death. It is okay to cry with the patient or family at the end of life. Just remember to take time for yourself and get involved with your hobbies. And thank you all for once again joining us. Take care, friends.